Welcome to our short series on stress and health. I am Joanna Ruth, and I'm bringing you this series so that we can all become a little bit more fluent on how stress is involved in our wellness. The first in our episodes is with Dr. Cywes. We are going to learn about adrenaline and cortisol and which one comes first, which one chases behind, and why. Now, you may already know that I am a strong advocate of emotional alignment life coaching, and I have developed this system because I have used it for years to create a constant state of emotional alignment so that I can lessen and therefore eventually eliminate all adrenaline alarms in my body. And there is a reason why I have focused so strongly on removing those adrenaline alarms, and that is because it was affecting my overall health. Dr. Cywes is going to explain to us that adrenaline as an alarm feature when we have a stress, which is an interaction between our perception and our expectation of what should come in the world and then what we see in the world, and we have an interaction. And when that interaction brings up a fear or a danger, an alarm of some kind, we get a shot of adrenaline. This is what the mind instructs the brain to do. The brain says adrenaline, adrenaline, and all the hormones in our bodies become under the command of adrenaline. They all have to obey what adrenaline is saying. Why? Because there's danger and we have to run away or we have to fight. Once upon a time, before humans were humans, we developed this safety and security neuroendocrine feature to keep us alive. We did have constant physical opportunities for danger, but they were short bursts. So we would be aware, and then we would sense danger, we would have the adrenaline rise, and then we'd run or we'd fight. And if we survived, we would have cortisol to come in and chase that adrenaline out and calm the system down. Dr. Cywes is very concerned about how the health and wellness field are villainizing cortisol. And I can sort of understand his perspective because I used to also talk about cortisol being the villain, but really neither of these hormones are villains. And if we're going to blame either one of them, it should be adrenaline. But at the same time, we shouldn't be blaming any of them because they're just doing what they're made to do. Our system is just working the way that it's meant to work. The problem has come about because we live in a modern world. The modern world doesn't appreciate this neuroendocrine alarm system that we have. There are no physical signs, virtually none, in that moment of adrenal heightening when we're having that alarm. It's all happening inside the body. The damage that is being caused by the adrenaline going up, the blood sugar going up to help you run away or you're going to fight. And what happens if you don't use up that blood sugar? What happens if you don't run and you don't fight? It stays in your blood and insulin has to come up and grab it all and take it somewhere else. Every time you have an adrenal alarm, you raise your adrenaline, you raise your blood sugar, you raise your insulin, and cortisol comes and chases behind. And cortisol keeps getting blamed, a little bit like LDL keeps getting blamed LDL didn't start the fire, and neither did cortisol. We have to start looking at what started the fire. Is it the world out there? Has it helped to try to change the world out there? Didn't help me. The world out there isn't going to change for you, for anyone. It just is the way that it is. However, internally, each single person has a belief structure that's been created, inherited, and then built upon from childhood, from social, familial learning. This is where your expectations come from. This is where your perceptions and your perspectives come from. Unfortunately, there's no learning, there's no talking about thinking about your thinking. There's not a lot of understanding anymore about how to deal with having expectations that just keep clashing with the reality of what's happening. If you expect everybody to be quiet and they're all noisy, how are you feeling inside? If you seriously walk into a room and expect absolute quiet and there's one person yelling really loudly, what happens inside your body? Are you just calm, like, whatever? No, you're aggravated. And if you're aggravated because your expectation of quiet is strong enough and solid enough, and they are very loud, it is in opposition, you are having an adrenaline rise. So you might have spent all day eating very, very low carbohydrate, and then all of a sudden your adrenaline rises because you have a different expectation to what's occurring. And when your adrenaline rises, your blood sugar rises. When your blood sugar rises, your insulin rises. And you may have spent all day up until then being really, really good and really obedient to your diet. And then all of a sudden, your expectations headbutted the world, and it was all for naught. Because now you have a blood sugar spike and you didn't have to eat anything. You just had to have an expectation that was not matching the reality that you observed. Now, if you go and watch the full episode, Dr. Cywes is going to explain to you where the neuroendocrine system comes from in our historical development. This is something that was developed post-reptilian, pre-human. So it's in the midbrain, and it has kept us alive. So we shouldn't be ungrateful. It is designed to alarm us and get us running or able to fight and therefore survive. And if we survive, cortisol comes through and calms everything down. Have a listen to what Dr. Cywes is saying in this clip. And you might want to go back and watch the entire episode because he explains it very, very well.
So my friend David Diamond, within an internal group of ours, writes this, and I'm reading it. I feel compelled to defend cortisol just as I defend cholesterol. I hear all the time, lower your cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Please, guys, hormones are not psychologic constructs. Hormones are a part of the metabolic system. Cortisol levels increase whenever metabolism increases. Cortisol levels increase whenever adrenaline increases. Cortisol levels increase also with stress, but they also increase during feeding, during exercise, during sex, activities which are not necessarily stressful. An illustration. People are prescribed prednisone, which equals cortisol. Prednisone is cortisol. It's an anti-inflammatory medication. People are prescribed prednisone, which is cortisol, to reduce inflammation. Or they may use cortisone cream, for example, for a rash, for an inflammatory rash. Has anyone given any thought to why prednisone and cortisone are so effective at reducing inflammation? Because stress, adrenaline, rapidly activates the immune system, and then minutes to hours later, cortisol suppresses the immune system, bringing it back to baseline. So what David's saying here is not only is the stress response vascularly and from a sugar and starch perspective important, Cortisol also, together with adrenaline, regulates the immune system and the immune response, which is part of which is the clotting response. Cortisol, therefore, is an anti-stress hormone, reversing the effects of rapid stress activators, ACTH, CRH, adrenaline, the neuroendocrine pathway, on our physiology. So cortisol is anti-stress. And the issue is not, are my cortisol levels elevated? Is their cortisol receptor resistance? And David goes on to say that this perspective explains why people with PTSD, anxiety, and emotional override who have abnormally low cortisol have autoimmune disorders from insufficient cortisol production or ineffective cortisol production, unable to rein in the sympathetic neuroendocrine system, which is the basis of PTSD symptoms and potentially why people with PTSD and anxiety syndrome as a group are overweight or diabetic. Blow your mind.
Now, apart from Dr. Cywes making the point that we all seem to be talking about cortisol when really we should be talking about adrenaline, and we shouldn't be so ungrateful that we have this system in our body because it has kept us here and surviving. However, we do need to understand how the system works, and we need to understand how the modern world and this system interact and how they're a little bit incompatible. So, which side of the table, which side of the interaction do you have the ability to change? If you've tried changing the world, you will have come to notice it doesn't work. You can change your environment only so much. And I understand because I've had to change my environment to enable enough calm to be able to have my head on straight, to then be able to work out what's going on in the inner environment. The inner environment is what you have 100% opportunity to investigate, understand, and alter and play with. It's yours. You can do as you like with it. I am incredibly passionate about this topic because this is how I have suffered. I suffered from the age of 3 all the way through to probably 50, about 50, maybe 51. I'm 51 now, so it's I'm on the tail end of 51. But I have suffered with these adrenaline spikes, and it has stopped my body from burning fat. Everything was so slow. Everything was so slow. Yet I developed emotional alignment as a technique informed by Hawaiian native technique of Ho'oponopono. It has altered my entire life, and because I didn't have someone looking into my situation from the outside, I had to do it all myself, probably because I'm a teacher and I need to become an understanding of how it all works. So I'm not ungrateful for that, but it did take me a very long time to keep realigning, finding something that was misaligning me and realigning. And I have come to the point where I believe I do not have adrenaline spikes anymore. I still have a sensitive system though from having had them. So I need to make sure I don't do anything to inflame my body. I don't eat anything inflammatory. I don't do anything inflammatory. And I do as much as I can in a calm state, keep my outer environment calm. And I don't have strong expectations that anyone is going to keep my health in mind. But I have a strong expectation that I will. And so that's how I attend to my life. And it's working. It's working really, really well. I am absolutely devoted to emotional alignment. And that's why I use it as my main technique in life coaching with people. It is the most effective strategy to resolve the stress, to eliminate the anxiety, and therefore stop the spiking of adrenaline, blood sugar, and insulin which is only going to bring you ill health if it happens chronically. Emotional alignment will not change the world around you. It will change how you see the world around you and how you react to the world around you. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. Please subscribe to the channel and email us if you'd like more information about life coaching. Here's a playlist for the entire series. Please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. See you in the next video.